the moment that you give that away and feel the lightness of doing what you love and being with the people that you love, that is when you become a real CEO. 90% of entrepreneurs probably have 50 courses sitting in their inbox they've never opened. But if I tell a VA, your job today is to go take this course, take notes, create an action plan, they're going to do it because that's their job. You to research the restaurants that celebrities go to the most in LA and book me a reservation. I had dinner sitting next to Al Pacino. I was like, oh, if I give really clear directions on what my outcome that I'm trying to achieve is, a VA can do anything that I could do. Hustle culture told me I needed to chase all these shiny objects. What I realized is if I can't delegate it and it's not me working in my genius, I am giving up time with the things that I love. So the real scam is that what we've taught entrepreneurs is that if you are not hustling 24 hours a day, you're not going to be successful.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the podcast. I'm excited because this is the episode. You are never going to do all those things by yourself. And ladies and gentlemen, I am sitting with the one and only Brittany Bettini on the show today. How are you doing, fam?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Listen, I'm excited about this. If they could only be in this room, hearing the conversation we had beforehand. And I'm excited because you are the queen of VAs.
Yeah.
You figured this thing out. And a lot of us right now are watching this or listening to this, and we're trying to figure out, all right, how do we navigate? How do we get more help? And so I want to ask you some of the most out-of-box questions that really help the audience right now. And I'm thinking, what's the first moment like you realized that like virtual assistants like weren't just like support staff, but could actually be a movement?
So a lot of people, they hire a virtual assistant and they give them like, you know, do the spreadsheet or check my emails. And for me, I started very early on with my virtual assistant, giving her weird stuff. I was like, I want you to research the restaurants that celebrities go to the most in LA and book me a reservation at the time when most celebrities go to this restaurant. And I had dinner sitting next to Al Pacino. So I was like, oh, if I give really clear directions on what my outcome that I'm trying to achieve is, a VA can do anything that I could do, and I don't have to spend all my time doing those things, doing that research. And once I figured out that, you know, that was even an option in my life as someone who struggled to let anybody do anything for me, it was, I mean, I delegated everything. I delegate my groceries. So I was like, you know, VAs can do way more than what we give them credit for, especially my team.
Oh, that's good. You know, I've sat down with a lot of amazing people, and very few people in the very first question, they give you that type of insight on how out of box thinking you have. Yeah. Like to then say, hey, look, I want to sit down on some of these most fancy restaurants. Al Pacino is not a small name. No. So your thought process is better than ChatGPT.
Yeah. Well, see, and I didn't even recognize him. He doesn't look like he did in Say Hello to My Little Friend. Okay. He had gotten a little bit older, and my husband was like, is that Al Pacino over there? Like sitting like literally right next to us with his daughters. And I was like, hold on, let me Google it. And I pulled it up and I was like, that is Al Pacino. It worked. So, you know, the biggest thing I can tell people to do is start all that research that we bog ourselves down doing. Give that to somebody else, because you can free up your time to do the actual things that you want to do, like go have dinner with Al Pacino.
I like this. You know, I'm curious, as you were growing up, like your thought process, right? To think, you know, okay, I know I want to learn something, but how were you as a young girl growing up?
So just a little all over the place, really loud and take up a lot of space. Even as a little kid, I was like very outspoken, very intelligent, but didn't ever have a filter. And I did not want to be an entrepreneur. My whole family was entrepreneurs, and I saw it as a weakness. I never got to see my parents. I never got to see my grandparents. They were always bickering. They brought work home with them every night. I was like, I'm going to get a corporate job. I'm going to be a lawyer. I like to argue. And, you know, God has a funny way of just being like, no, this is what you're born to do. And entrepreneurship was that thing for me. I just, with ADHD and just the sheer mass of everything you have to do in a business, I couldn't do it by myself. And instead of like failing and being like, I can't do this anymore, I was like, there's got to be an answer. And the answer for me was having other people do most of the work so that I could work in my genius.
Oh, I like that answer. Most people think about assistants as like behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And how do you help like VAs step into being seen as actual leaders, not just task doers?
Yes. This is the secret sauce that has made me extremely successful. Having your VAs doing things that normally you would think, I got to hire someone and pay them $100,000 a year to do that. A lot of times a VA just needs someone who believes in them and is willing to invest in them. So like, whereas entrepreneurs, we're always buying a new course, taking a new class, hiring a mentor. For me, I do that for my VAs. I bring in experts to train the VAs instead of train me. Why would I give this back to you watered down? Why would I go take a course, learn all this stuff that I'm not going to be the one doing those tasks? So I hired the coach to teach the VAs. I buy the course and put the VAs through it. It's their job to take the course. 90% of entrepreneurs probably have 50 courses sitting in their inbox they've never opened. But if I tell a VA, your job today is to go take this course, take notes, create an action plan of how we're going to execute on what that coach is telling us to do inside of the business so we can better our business, they're going to do it because that's their job to go do it. Entrepreneurs make excuses. I'm too busy to take this class. I don't have enough time to watch that video. And they don't have an excuse because it's their job that day. And in turn, by investing in them, buying them the software systems they need, giving them the classes that they need to take, I have taken VAs who were graphic designers, are now chief operations officer of my company. I've taken VAs that were, moms trying to make a little extra side cash to the head of customer service for my entire organization. I have VAs that have been with me for 5 years because they know I'm willing to invest in them and they're going to have an opportunity to grow with my company. My ego is out of it. I don't have to be doing everything and the one who's always working. I will let you learn and let you take over so that I can do what I'm good at, which is, talking to entrepreneurs and teaching.
Yeah. One thing I think is very interesting is that you're giving them the space to learn, but also you're giving them the space for promotion. And I think one thing that I'm hearing from you is that VAs deserve an opportunity and you found those opportunities. I'm curious about just the training aspect. Right? Yeah. If we were to walk into one of your VA community sessions tomorrow, like what would surprise us the most?
Probably that it's extremely laid back. Now, do we have KPIs we have to hit? And do we have, we have rules and we have a really strict company handbook and, they know what flies and what doesn't. But in one of our company meetings, it is like laughs and joy and excitement. Or I'll jump into a company meeting and I'll notice, because, VAs in the Philippines, they're on opposite time than us. So like if it's noon here, it's midnight there. If I get into a Zoom call with my team and I notice everybody's kind of like half asleep, I'm not in there like, you guys need to wake up. And, I'm like, all right, Virgiline, get online, send a Starbucks coffee or find a coffee shop near every single person on our team's house and have a coffee delivered right now. Y'all better wake up. It's time to get to work. So like creating a family culture, the way I always looked at it is like this. We become entrepreneurs because we hate our jobs. We become entrepreneurs, we hate our bosses. And then we start companies and we turn into the bosses we hated. We create company cultures just like the ones that we were trying to escape. And we wonder why we have this revolving door of people and we can never get anyone to stay and build with us. For me, I tried to sit down and make a list of every single thing I hated about working in corporate America, everything I hated about the goals being just driven higher and higher when I was achieving. And I was like, I'm going to do the opposite of that for my team. And the proof is in the pudding. They stay with me. I have a super low turnover rate and my team will literally ride or die for me. Like, please don't mess with my team because they'll be like, do you want me to have their stuff shut down? I'm like, no, calm down. And that's what you need when you're building a business is people who care as much as you do.
100%. Also a thing that I'm noticing is that what you really are is a community builder. Let's call it for what it is. Like, what's a question that people never ask you about building communities, but that you secretly wish they would?
Oh, that's a good question. Really, so many people are focused on what do I give to my VA to do, instead of the question of, hey, Brittany, what do I give to my VA that will make them like your team? Like, I wish I could spend more time teaching people how to be a better leader. I spend so much time like finding you the right employees, but what you really need is someone to come in and teach you how to be a leader of people. And so I'm kind of figuring out how to transition into, teaching people how to build a team that stays.
Turnover rate is so important, but also if you have bad turnover, you constantly are losing sales, right? To train a new employee takes up so much time that you're going to lose. I'm curious for you, like, what's the boldest, like, most unconventional decision that you've made in this VA journey, and how did you change everything?
I think being bold is more about asking people what they need. No one ever really sits their employees down and says, what do you want? What will make you work harder? No one in corporate America ever asked me what I needed. They told me what to do. And so the boldest thing I think I ever did was sit my team down, and I was like, list out everything that you hate about what we do currently. Tell me if you were running the show, what changes would you make? How do we get people to stay longer? And really great things came from that. Healthcare. A lot of people don't know you can get healthcare for your virtual assistants in the Philippines, and it is really inexpensive. And think about it like this. In the United States of America, your healthcare is tied to your job. A lot of people keep their 9-to-5 job, even when they're running their own business, because their healthcare is tied to it. Why are we not mimicking these huge corporations and what they do to keep their employees? If my employee will stay with me longer because they know that I'm providing them with healthcare and that's something that they need for their family, why am I not offering that to them as an opportunity? And when you're hiring VAs in the Philippines, you can do so much more with your money. Like, if I hire an in-person employee in the US, I have to pay workman's comp insurance, federal taxes, huge wages that I can't afford to even pay myself. All right. In the Philippines, I can pay less for a harder working, more qualified, more educated employee and offer them bonuses for staying for a certain amount of time, bonuses for perfect attendance, healthcare insurance, just love on them, send them flowers, send them birthday cakes on their birthday. Your money goes so much further in these outsourcing countries. And I'm sorry, but if it's good enough for Google, it's good enough for Brittany Bettini. If Google is hiring in the Philippines, if Papa John's is hiring in the Philippines, if Meta is outsourcing all their stuff to the Philippines, why, as a small entrepreneur in a business that's barely making it, why don't I get that opportunity? And why don't you get that opportunity as an entrepreneur to have staff you can count on without having to break the bank?
It's so key, right? Because you're also making sure that you don't go out of business, trying to stay in business.
Yep.
And sometimes you can have people working with you that are pretty much taking you out of business because of how they're acting and how they're responding. I mean, you've seen entrepreneurs misuse VAs, and you've seen them unlock incredible results with VAs. What's the biggest mistake you think founders make when bringing on virtual assistants?
Honestly, it's just the way that you treat people. One of the big things that I've noticed about the Philippines is in the culture, and mental health is a big thing. Just like it is here, we don't like to talk about it, but there too. And so when you check in with your virtual assistant and you say, how are you feeling? I noticed on your end of day reports that you still have this task that isn't completed. Instead of, being this mean boss, let's dissect why and really show up for the people that are making our business work. And that is the secret ingredient to team building and keeping people for a long time that will actually help you build something. We don't want just employees that are just task rabbits. We want people who genuinely care whether we succeed or not. And it's not going to come from your cousin or your best friend. They're going to start pocket watching you. They're going to start stealing from you.
Facts.
Whereas I have more loyal employees in the Philippines that will show up when I'm not at my best. For 2 years, I was chasing shiny objects, trying a new, adventure in a totally different field. My team ran the company without me. They showed up every day, even though they knew my brain was somewhere else, and continued to grow and continued to take care of the clients that trusted me, even when I wasn't able to show up myself. And that comes from just, they know I love them. So they know I care.
One thing I think goes understated with you is that you obviously have a high level sense of leadership and the ability to communicate a message that is then followed. I'm curious, like, where does that come from?
I don't know. I don't know. I didn't always feel like a leader. I always felt as like a young girl that I had something in me that was special. I didn't fit into social norms. I'm not like this soft little delicate flower. I liked to fight. Okay. I was very outspoken, and I didn't care. Genuinely, just I think the not caring about what people thought about me started at a very young age. And it's helped me a lot in business because I'm not afraid to walk into rooms where you're like, what is she doing here? And I'm just like, hey, everybody. And it's the same thing with my team. Hiring people is scary enough. Hiring people from a foreign country that you don't know and can't see and can't chase down if they screw you over is also scary. And I just kind of dove in head first. I was like, this feels right. And, I just kind of went with it. I don't know where the leadership came in. I think real leadership comes from caring about people, and you can be firm and you can keep people on track. You don't have to be cruel. And that's where my leadership kind of baselines is. I'm not going to be cruel to people. Simple
as what? Treat people as you want to be treated, right?
Yeah.
When you think about the future of work, I feel like your thought process on this could be very interesting. When you think about the future of work, AI, automation, remote first culture, when you think about this, where do you see VAs playing like the most powerful role?
So here's what I have to say about this. And I thought about this a lot on the way here. I was like, I pray and hope he says something about AI because I use AI. I use AI as a tool. I use automations as a tool. If you schedule a consultation with me today, you're going to get a bunch of automations and a bunch of, robots are going to be involved. But at the end of the day, especially right now, humans need humans. Okay. A robot can send you an email and it can follow a process that a human laid out for it. Okay. But a VA can say, I think the client is not going to react well to this. How can I damage control? A VA can say, I know that the contract says that we don't refund, but in this situation, the client is going through a hardship and we have empathy and we operate through ethics and we're going to do the right thing. Robots have a hard stop and they have rules they have to follow and they have a system that just bump. We do this and then we do this and we do that. A VA is going to stop. A VA is going to say, this isn't right and we need to do this better. They're going to think ahead of you. And when you're in business, you need someone who is out in front of the brand, okay? Not someone who's reacting to an email. And as a human myself, when I call, if I have an issue or I have a problem, I want to hear another human on the end of the phone acknowledge that I have a problem and say, you know what, I understand. And let's go through some ideas of how we can fix this. And I'm sorry, but I just don't see it getting to that point with AI. And if it does, how scary is that?
Oh my gosh, that sounds scary, right? You got to have that human element of trust too, right?
Trust.
You can't just trust everything you just read and come from a computer. You want to be able to think about things thoroughly. So I'm curious for you, if you're a VA community, right? If your VA community were to model absolutely what they're doing right now, but it was outside and must be applied to outside of businesses like schools, nonprofits, or even government, what would you change?
Honestly, nothing. We're already working in a lot of different areas. VAs are helping us get grants for nonprofits, do outreach for fundraising. I see I've built a couple political back ends using VAs for some politicians. I see that, we want to hire in America and, but we have this whole culture of people that their whole lives revolve around American businesses. The whole BPO industry in the Philippines is, they've changed their whole time of day. Mm-hmm. They're living like vampires to make sure we're successful. And I see it crossing over any boundary that will let it. Because there's people that don't want to do certain jobs in America, and there's people that can't afford to hire someone for $100,000 a year. And if you're a business owner who's like, I need help, but I can't afford all of this, then your first logical option is a virtual assistant in an outsourcing country.
I'm curious for you, right? For that person that's listening right now, you're watching, you say to yourself, hey, listen, I ain't got $40,000 for this. I don't have $50,000 for this. I need to have this job done. I'm listening to Brittany. I want to know, okay, how do I learn this knowledge? What's the very first step to even working with you to get this understanding and have VAs apply to their business?
Yeah. So there's a video on my website that kind of gives you the breakdown to make it really easy on what we offer. And then you can schedule a free call. The call is actually with me. And because like I said, I work in my genius, and that's my genius. Talking to entrepreneurs is the only thing I want to do on a daily basis. I don't do bookkeeping. I will go to prison. Okay. You don't want me doing bookkeeping. I'm not good with numbers. I don't do graphics. I talk to people. So, you can schedule a call with me. We'll figure out what holes need to be plugged in your ship so you don't sink. And we do the rest for you.
I like that, guys. Make sure you're doing that. It's in the show notes, but I got more questions here for you. What's the legacy that you want the VA movement to leave in like 10 years?
That entrepreneurs are allowed to have lives.
That's hard. You gotta go in on that one. Because before we hit the cameras and we started recording this, I know you do a lot of business, but you don't do business like in our office. Tell us, where are you taking these calls at? Talk about it.
So I went through the burnout version of Brittany. The hustle culture told me I needed to chase all these shiny objects. I need to start all these business, and I need to have Turo cars and venues and all these crazy things. And then what I realized is if I can't delegate it, and it's not me working in my genius, I am giving up time with the things that I love. My children, my family, my hobbies. And so, we are brainwashed, and everyone says that going to a 9-to-5 is a scam. But think about it. Those people get to clock out.
Facts.
They get to go to their job, and they don't care what happens after they clock out. Place could burn down. They'll find another job tomorrow. So the real scam is that what we've taught entrepreneurs is that if you are not hustling 24 hours a day, you're not going to be successful. And for me, I want my children to know who I am and know that they can be successful and live a soft life. I work from a hammock 3 days a week, and the other days a week I don't work.
Hold on, bring it back one more time. You work from a what?
A hammock on my back balcony overlooking the forest 3 days a week. I take all my calls from there. In fact, I close more clients since being in the hammock because as soon as I tell them, hey, man, I'm taking this call from the park, I'm taking this call from the hammock, they're like, sign me up, right? Because they haven't been in a park or in a hammock in a really long time because the hustle culture has taught them you got to be recording content all day long, and then you got to edit that content, and then you got to do the bookkeeping, and then you got to actually do the thing that you started your business for. Take pottery for an example, because I'm now a ceramicist.
Okay.
It was like
Ghost.
Yes. Okay. And my hands in the clay. It was like a bucket list item for me that I've been putting off for years because I was too busy hustling. And so look at it like this. You start this hobby of pottery, and you turn it into a business. You're like, I could quit my job and do this every day. That sounds amazing. I'm going to do that. So people turn their hobbies into businesses and then quickly realize that all the other stuff that comes along with the business makes them hate their hobby. It makes them hate the thing that they were so passionate about. For me, what I want that potter or ceramicist to know is that you can do what you love every single day of the rest of your life, make pottery all day long. And then you can have a VA that will edit the videos for you to post on social media. You can have a VA that will send the invoices, and you can hire someone to come in and pack those vases into boxes and ship them out. You can do everything. You just can't do it alone. And that is what I've learned. And now that I'm actually applying it to my life instead of just preaching it to people, I'm the happiest version of myself I've ever been. My children notice it. My 11-year-old son the other day told me, he was like, I was really sad when you closed the venue because it was so cool to tell all my friends that my mom owned a bar. But I have never seen you so happy. And I love having you home all the time. And right then and there, I was like, I am never going back to doing what I was doing before. I just want to help entrepreneurs get this type of freedom in their lives.
You know, let's sit there for a second. There's this thing about hustle culture, you know, where people immediately think they have to do it all, and they have to do it all themselves. And what you're teaching us all right now is there's this thing called strategy. It's this thing called realizing that there's better options, there's smarter ways of doing this. If you were to look at that camera right here and tell that person who has been living the whole hustle culture life, they've been living it, they're probably listening to this right now and still hustling. If you were to tell them the advantages of getting that time back with loved ones and doing it this way, what would you tell that person?
Everything that you are holding up here in your head that you think no one else can do but you, because you're the best and you're the owner, the moment that you give that away and feel the lightness of doing what you love and being with the people that you love, that is when you become a real CEO. That is when you become the leader of your organization, of your business, instead of being self-employed. And it is the transition that all the people that you look up to have already done. All the Jeff Bezoses and all of the people who are, you know, cruising around on their big yachts, they're not packing boxes and they're not creating content. So once you let go of the reins a little bit, your life will get better.
Oh man, we could drop the mic, we can end the podcast right off that note. But I want to ask you some rapid fire questions, right? Because we almost got them on tearjerker mode. If you were to think about like your favorite book or podcast that shaped your leadership, what would you say that book is?
Okay, so 4 Hour Work Week, Tim Ferriss. Baby, I read that and I took that so seriously. Like I was like, oh, he said he can work 4 hours a week? Bet, let's do that. So that changed my life forever. And I was already in the VA game before I read the book. So once I read it, I was like, oh, like I'm even doing this wrong. So if you haven't read 4 Hour Work Week, that's a read that will change your life forever.
You know, there's also this thing like opportunity pattern recognition that I preach about. And it sounds like your life is consistent of so many patterns that lead you to a different thing. So I like that answer. Most surprising skill a VA has ever brought to your community?
Ooh, surprising skill. Honestly, so once you get a little bit of recognition as an entrepreneur, you start seeing these pop-ups of fake pages, and everyone's always so stressed out about these fake pages, right? Well, my VAs, they find them and get them taken down before I even know that they're there, and it was something that was so like cool to me because I hear people like complaining about it, but it was never a problem for me. It was never anything I had to face because I had someone who had my back and was looking out for me. And I'd never had that before. I've never had, a bunch of cheerleaders. Entrepreneurship can be very lonely.
Facts.
So for me, the most like surprising thing was having someone who was like, oh, I got your back. They're not going to mess with Big Boss Brittany. And so, for me, it wasn't necessarily a skill that made me money. It was just a skill that gave me peace of mind.
Facts. You need to have a peace of mind. You know what's so crazy about those fake pages? There was a time before, you can get the blue checks.
Yeah.
There was a time when some of those fake pages was better than the real ones, though. I mean, they were finding the best content and they were putting them together. I said, oh, that's kind of tough. So I think that's very, very interesting. One word to describe the VA industry today and one word to describe where it's going.
One word. Sketchy. A lot more focus has to be put on the recruitment side of things. That's why I'm in business. A lot of people, they get a virtual assistant and then it doesn't work out and they're like, I'm never getting a VA again. You really just need someone who will vet the people correctly, because in any culture, in any country, and anywhere, there's a scammer. So going to Fiverr and Upwork and just paying the first person who says, yeah, I can do that is the quick way to really screw up your business.
I like that. One word to describe where it's going.
Where it's going, battle. AI.
Elaborate more on that.
The battle between humans and AI is going to start with the people who are doing the most work. And you already see it. People are, using Opus to edit their videos, but the AI can't cut it right. And so I think we're winning right now, but it's a battle. And the more that we invest in other humans instead of robots, the happier I think our world will be in the future.
I like that. That's a lot. If you weren't doing this, I'm curious, what is the alternate universe career you'll be crushing?
I almost said something terrible. In an alternate universe, I would probably be a housewife, because that's like exactly parallel to where I am now. I just don't fit that role, and I hang out with all the football moms, and I'm like, oh yeah, I closed a deal with Disney. And so in an alternate reality, I'm just like a housewife who bakes bread and hangs out and watches soap operas.
And from the hammock.
Not from the hammock. She would be very busy doing dishes and doing laundry. I don't do laundry. So, she has a whole different set of problems and she doesn't know how to delegate.
I want to ask you the question we've asked every single person that's ever been on the show, been on this platform. And thank you for being on the show today and giving us this phenomenal advice. But if you were that person that's getting ready to walk across that stage, or perhaps you don't have any degree at all, and you're asking yourself the question of the podcast, school's over, now what? What advice would Brittany Bettini give?
That whatever it is that you want to do, whether you're going off this stage and onto, a big career, or whether you are an entrepreneur and you want to grow your own brand, remember that you are not required to do it all by yourself. And I have clients who are C-level executives at huge corporations, all the way down to solo entrepreneurs who are, just trying to make their next dollar. And the feeling is the same. You don't have to do it all. And there are ways to lighten the load, because this world is heavy enough.
Yeah, I like that. So listen, guys, you are listening to School's Over Now podcast. We have just gotten a masterclass from the queen of VAs, Brittany Bettini. Right now, people want to follow you. They want to learn more about what you got going on. So give us all your social media information so we can stay in touch.
Yeah, so I'm at Brittany Bettini on everything. I tried to keep it real simple. So just my first name and last name.
Guys, be sure to go ahead and follow her. Be sure to go ahead and get that discovery call. You need to figure out how you no longer have to stress yourself out for trying to do it all and do it smart. For those of you who have been listening, I want you to always remember, dream it, believe it, go out and get it. We'll see you next week. Yo, what you think? I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I want to know what you learned. So if you wouldn't mind, would you take a screenshot of you listening to the podcast on your phone right now? Upload to your Instagram stories, tag me at Shawn Anthony _, and then let me know in that Instagram story what is one thing that you learned. I love hearing from you, my listeners, thought leaders, former or current students all around the world. Let me know, and while you're doing this, go inside the podcast app, subscribe, leave a 5-star review and a 5-star rating. Again, this helps us reach more people. And if you want to be a part of this mission, helping us change the world one person at a time, it makes a massive difference by you leaving a review. Thanks so much. I'll see you next week. And remember, dream it, believe it, go out and get it.